creepy because you had this halo of light surrounding the tiara and the wedding dress. It seemed very ghostly. So I'm sure that when the Queen said it's horrid, she was talking about the actual creepiness of the whole situation.
But by all accounts, she isn't the easiest person to get to know.
I think when you look at the Queen from a journalistic perspective, she's probably one of the most elusive women in the world, and that we know all about her as the monarch, but not much about her as a mother. And as a woman, she does seem to elude people because you often never really know what she's thinking.
But William has always known his place with the Queen as her grandson, and he was keen for her and Kate to be close too.
I think that William, as he says himself, treats the Queen as his grandmother first, the Queen second. So there's a degree of warmth there.
Kate's long relationship with William certainly helped prove her integrity and placed her in good stead with our monarch.
Like anybody who meets her who isn't related to her, she is the world's most famous woman and a fairly daunting figure with all of the experience that she has with nearly 60 years on the throne. That said, my understanding is as both women get on very well. The Queen really took to Kate from the beginning because she's such a well-brought-up young lady from a strong family who clearly loves William, and I think that's been the most important thing to the Queen as his grandmother, that he's married somebody he's going to be happy with.
William and Kate were showing healthy signs for a happy future, and in June they even managed some downtime at the Royal Box at Wimbledon. This day off would have been a welcome break from the preparations they were undergoing for their biggest event since the wedding.
The trip to Canada and the United States was a massive event, and they knew, and the royals knew, and the people that worked for them knew that there'd be massive interest in that, not only here but overseas as well.
The pressure to impress stateside was on. William and Kate may have won over Britain, but how easy would it be to win the hearts of the Commonwealth as well?
Please welcome the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, William and Kate.
Canadian visits are a regular occurrence for the current House of Windsor. The Queen's first visit was also as a newlywed in 1951, prior to her ascension. She and Prince Philip last visited just 2 years ago in 2010, racking up a total of 22 visits and making it her most frequented country. Canadians would remember William's last visit as a bashful teenager in 1998. Now a confident young man ready to take on the duties of his position, this tour was a chance to introduce Kate to the Commonwealth and for them both to make their international debut as a married couple. After months of practice with official engagements on home soil, it was time for William and Kate to take the show on the road. They embarked on a jam-packed 11-day tour, culminating in a glamorous trip to Hollywood. With the Queen still head of state in Canada, this was an opportunity for the royal family to engage with Canadians again, and for William and Kate to make an impact on North America.
Canada is one of the most significant countries in the Commonwealth, and there's always a degree of trepidation about at the start of any royal tour, and certainly royal officials were worried about how it would go, and the response even surprised them.
Whilst it was plainly obvious that William and Kate's popularity had gone through the roof at home, the Canada tour revealed just how much of an impact they had made globally. From the moment they were welcomed by the Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper, every moment of their tour was accounted for. Their first day was spent at a stream of meetings and ceremonies ahead of the huge celebrations that were to come the next day.
Nothing could have prepared me for the extraordinary fervour of the crowds. We arrived in Ottawa on Canada Day, and we were there from about 4 a.m, and the crowds were already ranked up 10, 20, 30 deep along the route that they were going to come in their carriage. And it was extraordinary. We went to a breakfast party of the Canadian monarchists group, and they were all there, and they had their flags and their T-shirts and all of those things that you expect with real extreme monarchists in this country, but I hadn't expected that in Canada somehow. I don't know, maybe I was naive, but they were absolutely passionate about them, and when they appeared, the crowds were hysterical.
Catherine and I are also thrilled and excited by the prospect of the next 8 days. Especially of being part of the Canadian family.
Well, the royals in general have always been extremely popular in America and Canada and across the Commonwealth, and actually the notion of William now with Kate by his side has almost doubled their appeal. And I think particularly just Kate is this quintessentially English woman that really appeals stateside, because it's their idea of what a princess should be like. She ticks all the boxes and they love that about her.
She's amazing. She's beautiful, and she's just, I don't know, just amazing.
She seems educated and well-rounded and classy, and you can kind of relate to her.
She's the most stylish woman in the world. They're the most popular couple in the world right now.
Crowds called their names and people turned up in costume. Generations of families arrived, all wanting to see them in the flesh. As a prince, William's always been a favoured pin-up stateside, but on this visit he wanted to make a more significant impression.
He wants this particular royal couple to stand for something, and he is clearly very sensitive about how to be relevant. He's a native to this and has a huge amount of sort of training and a real sense of responsibility.
William, you're the man!
We tried to get through to the front at one point, my cameraman and I, and we had been kept behind a rope because we were, there was a sort of display of horse riding and motorcycle display riders and so on before they arrived. And we were walked forward very carefully by the mounted police with this rope, and thousands of people were there. And they said, we'll just go slowly, and then we'll get you to the side of the route. And there was this long rope, and then someone at the far end broke ranks, and it was chaos. People were running. I mean, thank goodness there weren't any children there, because it was every man for himself. It was madness. And we arrived, and we were about 10 back from the front. And I tried to wiggle my way through to the front with my cameraman, because I had another camera waiting for me there to do a piece to camera. And the abuse I've got from people who didn't want to give up their place. And I said, look, it's just for a piece to camera, just for a British television program. They said, no, you haven't camped out. There's no way. You've deceived us. How dare you nick my place? I've been here for hours. And, you know, there was absolute passion and I would say a degree of hysteria. And that was before they even arrived.
The response from the Canadian public was overwhelming and was reflected by the huge media presence.
I think many people had thought that the royal family would gradually phase out and die. But actually it feels more relevant, more lively, and more hope than we've had in the royal family for many, many years.
Throughout every moment of the 9-day Canada tour, the Duke and Duchess were entirely at the service of the Commonwealth. Their days were packed with public appearances, in Montreal getting stuck into cooking classes and taking part in a tree planting ceremony. Later meeting servicemen and veterans before sailing on to Quebec City. William got to show off his flying skills, taking part in a ski helicopter training session on Prince Edward Island. They played hockey in Yellowknife and visited the scene of wildfires at Slave Lake in Alberta. They were honoured at ceremonies and met with countless heads of state and servicemen, with William giving public speeches to the nation.
Merci Cho, Kay Ya Nukbuk. Merci à tous. Thank you very much.
They shook hands with thousands of well-wishers.
I don't care, I just want to shake your hand.
In Ottawa alone, over half the population were believed to be present. And with a flick of their Stetsons, they blew perceptions of the Royals as prim and stuffy aside, whilst at the Calgary Stampede.
It's not just about responsibility to this country and the position and keeping the monarchy alive, but actually recognising that there isn't the same respect of the monarchy from the people or even countries around the globe.
They were wowing the crowds, but what impression were they making on the worldwide media?
When a rather cynical and jaundiced sort of media pack can actually see people on the street responding in such a positive way, and it just wasn't perhaps your usual royal fans, it was quite a cross-section of people. They know that they've got something on their hands now that is going to project brand Britain in a very modern sort of way. So that's when excitement came. It was unexpected.
I've got to go.
A royal tour takes months of planning, often attending over 3 events per day, meeting various VIPs and members of the public. The research into this trip was phenomenal. Williams had a lifetime to grow accustomed to tradition and protocol, but it was all new to Kate, and she had undertaken months of training to prepare her. What exactly did she need to know?
Anybody that's attending or being involved in a royal occasion needs to know how to behave, who meets who, whether you start the conversation, where you sit, where you stand, who stands, who sits, who gets curtsied to. And what she's being taught is the protocol of royal life at a public occasion. Even though on every occasion there would be a crib sheet and she'd be guided on that particular occasion.
By all accounts, neither William nor Kate put a foot wrong.
I thought it was a tremendous success, and I'm speaking as someone who'd covered many tours of Canada with Charles and Diana and Andrew and Edward.
Even the few that weren't so pleased to see them didn't faze William or his less experienced bride.
In Montreal, there were quite a few protesters against, the anti-monarchist protesters. And I was waiting outside a hospital with a lot of anti-monarchists who were pretty vocal, pretty passionately anti-monarchist, and they were shouting and barracking when they got out of the car. And she didn't flinch. She gave a quick smile. They were hurried in. They didn't linger, but she was very, very cool, I would say. She seemed like a seasoned performer. She had been very well briefed.
This couple were determined to define themselves as the new, more relevant generation of royals. Fittingly, the final 2 days of the tour saw them head for the bright lights of California.
And then, of course, we ended up in Los Angeles, where the kings and queens of Hollywood turned out to come and paid homage to them. It was a tremendous, successful tour.
William and Kate touched down in LA for the final few days of their North America tour. Their weekend in California saw them head for Hollywood, renowned the world over as the cultural hotbed of the film industry and home to the stars. The couple combined the sparkle of the red carpet with visits to disadvantaged children of Skid Row and a speech at a military conference.
This is the last event on our tour of North America, but to my mind, it is one of the seriously most important. This is because it is about men and women who, of their own free will, choose to put their life on the line for their country.
Whilst they were still very much on duty, it's fair to say their schedule did take a turn for the glamorous. One of their first gigs was at a celebrity-filled polo match to raise funds for the foundation of Prince William and Prince Harry.
Catherine and I have had a busy few days. So the prospect of being able to let loose this afternoon is wonderful for me.
William got the chance to show off his horsemanship, scoring 4 out of 5 of his team's goals and collecting a victory kiss from his wife.
There's a big difference between the Hollywood side of the tour and the Canada side of the tour. Canada was very much more of a meet the people, because it was their people, ultimately, with the Commonwealth. In Hollywood, it was very much meeting movers and shakers, actors, actresses.
No matter how glitzy it may have seemed, the royals still had work to do, and their next official engagement saw them raising the profile of the British film industry. What better place to do it than at a star-studded BAFTA ceremony in LA?
If you brought back to life Clark Gable and Marilyn Monroe, they wouldn't excite Americans this much.
Oh, they make me smile. I love them.
Tickets for the event were a sellout. Even in a room full of Hollywood glitterati, it was the royal star that shone the brightest.
Kate succeeded in making even Nicole Kidman looking a little bit dumpy. Kate made her look... Kate was so slender and so elegant and so glamorous that she made all the stars look a little bit kind of earthly.
I think in terms of pure star quality, William and Kate now are the biggest stars in the world.
Hollywood wish they had a monarchy, but they outshone some of the top A-listers. And the adoration of the A-listers towards this young couple really made people stand up and think, actually, we've got a commodity here that's better than a $40 million per movie star.
And whilst William may have won the prizes on the polo field, Kate's dress at the BAFTA Gala scored points in another arena: fashion.
It was a McQueen pleated chiffon goddess dress, and she really did look like a goddess and outshone all the Hollywood actresses that were there that evening.
It wasn't just at the BAFTAs. Kate had successfully nailed the glamorous princess look earlier in the year.
All eyes were certainly on them for the ARC event, which is known to be a very glamorous, glittering occasion in the London social calendar, and actually Kate's dress reflected that.
When I saw her in the flesh in this Jenny Packham gold floor-length gown, I mean, she did look like the definition of a Hollywood goddess. I mean, you know, you could imagine her holding the torch for Universal or something like that. It was just breathtaking, and all the photographers were just absolutely desperate to get a good image of her.
Kate's fashion sense may have had the tongues wagging long before, but it wasn't until her wedding day that she caught the eye of the most discerning fashionistas.
The royal wedding was the first time that Kate really came to my attention as a future fashion icon. I thought the choice of Sarah Burton for McQueen to design her wedding dress was an inspired one and a very brave one. It really cemented her place in fashion history.
From there on, she had a lot to live up to. The big question, of course, could she pull it off?
Catherine's had an amazing year in terms of being recognised as a fashion icon. She won the Harper's Bazaar Best Dressed Brit Award this year. She's also was nominated at the British Fashion Awards for Best Style.
People are nominated for Style Awards when their influence is undeniable, and you can see by the way she sells clothes. You know, she crashes websites when people try and emulate her style, and you know, people do want to buy into this imaginary, you know, perfect princess, which makes her a fantastic platform for British design.
The North America trip was where Kate revealed herself to be a fashion ambassador, flying the flag for British fashion. Not only was the tour scrutinised by royal watchers, fashion critics were on the edge of their seats too, making it an exciting time for British designers. No pressure, Kate.
She had to change outfits 3-4 times a day, and she went from, you know, skinny jeans and a 10-gallon hat to an evening dress to a lace shift dress. She seemed to really be enjoying herself and looked appropriate at every occasion.
Kate also win the favour of the Canadian fashion contingent?
The Canadian public loved the Canada Day outfit, the red and white with little maple leaves on the hat. The editor of Canadian Elle said, it was a little literal, she said. So this is what she's up against, you know, you keep the people happy or you keep the fashion crowd happy. What do you do?
She's not going to please everybody. Public figures don't please everybody all the time. And if she tried to, she'd drive herself mad.
A maple leaf hat isn't the kind of thing that many of us could get away with, but Kate pulled it off. But when it comes to her wardrobe, is the vision all her own?
She doesn't use a stylist, I don't believe. So, you know, what you see is Kate expressing herself to the public in her own way. And I think she does it very well, and it always looks effortless.
I've heard it said that she didn't ever want to be a fashion icon, and I think I believe that. But I think she is aware of the influence she has and aware of her role, and therefore she's setting a good example, which is different to being an icon.
Icon or not, Kate is a British ambassador, and as representative of the nation, her outward image is always going to be important. As a working royal, there's a balance to strike between duty and style, but Kate seems to get it right every time.
I definitely think Kate is very conscious of making sure she doesn't become too fashionable, she doesn't become the spotlight. She's very sure not to take the spotlight off of an event she's attending or a cause that she's promoting, which I think is very special, and it says a lot about Catherine as a person.
I think she dresses for her duty, but she has fun with it. She enjoys experimenting with new designers. You know, perhaps she hadn't heard of people like Erdem and Alice Temperley perhaps before she started taking on this very public role. But the thing about it is that she doesn't lead with her fashion choices. She leads with her responsibility. That's the impression that I get.
So Kate's wardrobe is largely a working one, governed by occasion. She may appear oblivious to the fashion splash she makes, but could it be that she's actually making very considered choices?
Kate proved herself to be kind of a fashion ambassador, not necessarily a style leader, but someone who, you know, was very diplomatic. She wore a maple leaf hat. She wore a Catherine Walker dress, Diana's favourite dress designer, on the anniversary of Diana's birthday.
When she visited the Northwest Territories, she picked a designer, a northern designer from Denmark. So the littlest things like that really shows that she's doing her research.
And whether you love them all or not, Kate seemed to have packed something for everyone.
One of the highlights of Catherine's Canada tour for me was the red Catherine Walker coat dress that she wore on her last day. I love seeing her in red. She looks very regal, she looks elegant, and I love the sort of nipped-in waist and the 50s style skirt.
She was wearing a purple dress and she had her hair in a sort of chignon, and it looked very elegant. And I thought that she nailed it then. And the other day, I thought she looked great. It was on Prince Edward Island when he did the helicopter display. And she wore skinny jeans and a little belted-in mac and a red scarf. It was understated. It absolutely fitted with the occasion. And it was in no way pretentious.
I think she really put on a display of how to do a really good day dress, from the kind of emerald green Diane von Furstenberg to the pale Roxander. And then, of course, when she went all out onto the red carpet and went back to McQueen, her wedding dress, designer Sarah Burton, and took everybody's breath away.
It's not just big names for her, however. Kate also manages to mix high-end with the high street.
I happened to see Kate in the flesh myself when I was in London, in Topshop, actually. She's a million times more beautiful in person than in any photograph you will ever see. And she's just incredibly normal.
Normal she may be, but her ability to boost sales makes her a very desirable customer.
The effect Catherine has on the high street is that she generates sales to a phenomenal extent. She wore a Reese dress to meet Michelle Obama, and that dress, after she was photographed wearing it, I think they sold like a dress every minute.
I mean, it happened with the Easter dress for the engagement announcement and countless links of London jewellery pieces, and throughout the year that's happened. It happens with any celebrity, but the Kate effect makes it happen even more quickly than anybody else.
She's been the most phenomenal ambassador for British fashion, just not only for the high street, where she's made local high street brands like Whistles, and she's given them international acclaim, but she's made someone like Sarah Burton, who was relatively unknown before, to the most famous designer in the world.
She gives them a global platform. Immediately that she wears a dress, the whole world is watching and then knows about that designer, and that will continue. She's in a unique position where there is a very positive aura about her, and if she can use that to support the British fashion industry, it's fantastic news for that industry.
By choosing homegrown designers, Kate has become an ambassador for British fashion. Never has a royal wardrobe been so scrutinised, except, of course, for one other princess. Kate's eye for haute couture as well as high street was something also noted in Princess Diana.
The only person, in terms of fashion coverage, I suppose, that you can definitely compare her to is, of course, her mother-in-law. And whether she chooses to emulate her or not, presumably she's, you know, keen to be inspired by her.
It's really a kind of renaissance time now, with Kate being a style icon, as Princess Diana was in her day, perhaps even harking back to the days of Grace Kelly. And that's a great thing for the royal family, because although it might seem a little frivolous what someone wears and how they seem, actually how Kate carries herself does reflect modern royalty. William and Kate are the future, and for people to buy into the brand, these two people need to be leading lights.
So, while Catherine's wardrobe has generated fashion headlines, what about her husband's style?
William's style? Well, she always outshines him, right?
But others are more appreciative of his fashion sense.
I think his uniform on his wedding day was absolutely dapper, and I said, mate, he was looking dapper.
I think on his wedding day, William looked amazing in the Irish Guards uniform that he wore. I thought that was a really fantastic choice. He looked so chic and elegant. But generally, the limelight is on Kate, and I think William's quite happy to stand in her shadow a little bit.
In her first year as the Duchess of Cambridge, most would agree Kate's made a big impression on the fashion scene. But where will it go from here?
I think as Kate grows into her role as princess, she grows in confidence with her, you know, her sartorial choices, and you can see her becoming more confident as she's adopting more high-end designers, and I think that all reflects her, just her confidence in her role as a princess.
The Canada tour was a feeding frenzy for the world's press. But while the rest of the world's gaze fell upon the Duke and Duchess last summer, William only really had eyes for Kate.
He was a really attentive husband, and it was lovely to see that. You know, he was concerned about her all the time. If there was a walkabout and it looked like it was really, really robust, he'd say to her, "Do you want me to come with you? Are you comfortable with this on your own?"
Over the past year, it's been clear that William's been mindful of the pressures placed on Kate at public events. The burden of press intrusion that comes with being his wife is something that's always concerned him.
Happy birthday, Kate. Her and her family, I really want to make sure that they have the best sort of guidance and chance to see what life has been like, or what life is like in the family, and that's kind of almost why I have been waiting this long, as I wanted to give her a chance to see and to back out if she needed to, before it all got too much, because, you know, I just wanted to give her the best chance to settle in and see what, you know, what happens the other side.
From Kate's first official interview last November, he's been ready to jump in and help her out with probing questions when her nerves get the better of her.
No, it's obviously nerve-wracking because I don't know what I'm sort of, I don't know the ropes really. William was obviously used to it, but no, I'm willing to learn quickly and work hard. And
She'll do really well.
Yeah.
We'll do very well.
This is the first time she'd ever been heard in public, and so there's a sense of responsibility, a sense of protection, and a sense that she's new to something he's been brought up to do all his life. And it was very tender and very endearing.
And ever since then, he has rarely been far from Kate's side. William knows all too well just how quickly a harmless comment can turn into a damning news report.
He's quite clever now, he's quite astute, you know, he knows where a question's coming from, he knows that there's somebody getting too close, you know, a camera probably getting too close, and he's aware of that. He's very shrewd, William, and I'm sure he makes Kate very aware as well.
William has been exposed to press intrusion all of his life. His protectiveness of Kate in the present is, of course, influenced by events locked in his past. To understand his guardedness, we need to go back to where it started.
In the 80s, when Prince Charles and Diana got married, it was aggressive reporting, aggressive pictures, day in, day out, day in, day out. And in the end, of course, it drove the poor princess mad. She was bouncing off the walls at the end. She didn't know where to go. But people sort of sticking cameras in their face. And, you know, it's well reported that at one stage she ran into a doorway, sobbing and crying because she didn't know which way to turn.
Remember that it was William, really, whose shoulder Diana used to cry on when she was miserable at Kensington Palace.
William's memories of this time in his childhood will never be forgotten.
Paris is tonight a city of questions, and the main one is, how could such a tragic accident have occurred? Police have been questioning 7 photographers who pursued the princess's car before it crashed. She was terribly injured. Doctors tried for hours to save her, but they couldn't.
In 1997, his mother, Diana, Princess of Wales, was killed in a tragic car accident in Paris. At the time of the collision, she was being pursued by a number of photographers.
After the death of his mother, in the first few days, it was thought that it was a paparazzi who caused her death, and he'd seen, you know, the day-to-day life before that, of where she was chased down the street by photographers, where she'd been hounded on a daily basis.
I don't say it was directly caused by pursuing paparazzi, but they were part of the cocktail, and they were part of the reason why the driver was speeding.
Grief and anger shook the country, but how were the princes coping?
During the turbulent week leading up to Diana's funeral, William actually talked about becoming a recluse and leaving royal life altogether. So it took a Herculean effort on behalf of the royal family and politicians to bring him back into a state where he was prepared to face the British public and, of course, the hated media. And Prince Philip, his grandfather, was instrumental in convincing both William and Harry to walk behind Diana's funeral cortege. They'd both argued vociferously, especially William, that they weren't going to be part of some media stunt. And he said, if I walk, will you walk? And at that kind of 11th hour, William and Harry agreed to do so.
As the nation mourned the loss of a princess, they also heaped protectiveness onto the princes. Surely it was time now that they were also afforded some privacy.
The media themselves just shrank back because they knew that the public would be outraged.
The press agreed to give William and Harry the space they needed from constant intrusion during their school years. But William had already developed an understandable grudge.
He was very antagonistic and very hostile towards the media. And you saw that when he was at Eton, where he begrudgingly gave interviews, he begrudgingly gave photo calls, and it took courtiers a number of years to actually convince him to deal with the media on a more mature footing.
I was a bit anxious about how everything was going to turn out, but thanks to everyone. It really has been brilliant. You've all left me alone at the beginning. The whole of Eton made a real big difference with everyone not trying to sort of snap a picture every time I was walking around the streets, and I hope it just continues for Harry as well while he's there.
Aside from the odd occasion, the standoff from the press continued for William even throughout university.
William, Wales.
William gave a rare interview after he left university. The press were interested to know about his relationship with Kate. Even then, he was clearly uncomfortable with the attention.
Could there be another wedding perhaps on the card sometime soon?
No, I don't think so.
A lot of coverage this morning, William, of Kate. I wonder how you feel about that and how she's bearing up under the scrutiny.
I haven't seen any of it. I'm just gagging to get on the slopes, basically. Simple as that.
Not much snow about, though.
I was enough up there.
Eventually, though, he would have to adjust to the interest that comes with being an active member of the royal family. Now, a married man, William's royal role has been cranked up, placing him well and truly into the spotlight. Having enjoyed a relatively private experience whilst at university, how was he coping with the transition?
I think William is absolutely paranoid, actually, that Kate does not fall into the same trap as his mother.
He may have serious concerns about the pressure such sudden interest would place on Kate, who of course hasn't had the lifetime of experience he's had. But how do those on the sidelines rate her performance so far?
Certainly, Catherine had almost taken to the role as if to the manner born, even though she was a commoner. You could see that there was a almost audible intake of breath as people were saying, well, she's doing this okay, she's not had a conniption, she's kept her cool, and she seems to be taking it all in her stride.
She prepares very well for it. She's very well briefed, and I think she's embracing it, and I think she's enjoying it.
In fact, far from shying away from her role, Kate seems to have taken ownership of it.
You never get the impression that she is nervous. But what's interesting is he is very, very close to her at all times. And I spoke to people who had observed Charles and Diana in the old days and William in his bachelor days. And they said what's interesting is that William is completely tuned into her all the time. And at every stage, you could almost see him saying, are you okay with this? Are you happy with this? And I very much get the impression that she did it the way that she felt comfortable doing it.
It seems that William may have been surprised at just how resilient his bride actually was.
He seemed, to me, to be proud and to take a great deal of pleasure in everyone's pleasure in her, which was, you know, it was very touching.
Their body language screams love for each other. They're really in harmony. What they do mirrors each other. They're constantly just gently touching each other and always looking to the other one for reassurance, for comfort, for support. They're very, very in harmony.
William has looked on as Kate has delighted everyone she's met, charming even the most cynical media hacks. And watching the world's press embrace his wife seems to have brought about a significant change in the previously publicity-shy prince.
I think William has come to accept that if he's going to be king, if he's going to be a prince, he's got to engage with the media. And he's emerged as something of a consummate media performer.
We've grown to know a lot more about William than we ever have, both through his affection, the love he's shown for Kate and spoken publicly about, and also just through the work that he's done being highlighted because of their marriage.
William has shown himself to be the protector in their relationship, always attentive towards how Kate may be feeling. What does she bring to him in return?
There were moments when Kate gave William the nod after a speech and a good, well done pat on the back, and equally times where he was guiding her through engagements. And it was lovely, actually, to see William for once with somebody by his side, sharing royal life rather than just going solo.
Apart from anything else, I think you don't get lonely. It must be lonely otherwise. That sort of solitary existence as the one person who everyone's looking at must be easier when there are two of you.
Perhaps being a royal isn't always as glamorous as it seems.
They clearly share a good sense of humour, and I'm sure they have quite interesting banter at the end of every day where they've had to stand, you know, like effigies in a receiving line or eat another plate of rubber chicken. I think the job of a royal is ineffably boring, and I wouldn't want to be, or my daughter to be, poor Kate Middleton, for a million years, because, you know, she's got to have a life of service. So at the end of the day, you've got to have someone who you can turn to and say, that was a nightmare, or wasn't it amazing when?
Kate's life has undergone a huge transformation since marrying her prince. But is it possible that her presence is shaping William's path as well?
I think William and Kate really complement each other well. They're quite alike in many ways in that they're quite calm and considered, quietly confident people, but actually Kate has quite a calming influence on William, who might have a little bit more of a temper than she does. Also, I think the notion that she is from an ordinary family, a normal girl, a commoner as she's described, rather than being born into royal life, does help keep it real a bit for William, who's never known anything other than being in the monarchy.
In fact, it's Kate's ability to relate to people and put them at ease that's so often remarked upon. How has she succeeded in making everyone adore her?
You've got a very impressive selection of medals.
Catherine's very intuitive with people. It comes to her naturally. So when we see her with the child, talking to the child, she's down on her knees looking at the child at eye level to make him feel reassured and not anxious.
Kate's affection towards people has led to inevitable comparisons to her late mother-in-law. Does Kate fill the void Diana left in William's life?
I would love to have met her, and she's obviously she's an inspirational woman to look up to.
We've watched William flourish under Catherine's tutelage. He's learnt humour, he's learnt to relax. He's turning into the kind of man his mother would have been enormously proud of, and a lot of that is down to Catherine.
She's probably better educated than Diana ever was, has a different outlook on life. But of course, William will find love and tenderness there that he may have missed throughout his teenage years because his mother wasn't around.
No one's going to try and, no one's trying to fill my mother's shoes, and what she did is fantastic. It's about making your own future and your own destiny, and Kate will do a very good job of that.
You do that, can't do it. I do the talking bit, she's going to do the fun bit.
Kate's influence has certainly drawn out the playful side of the prince that the rest of us, at least, have only recently come to know.
You know, he's not the first guest you'd think of for a fun dinner party. Harry, you want along because he'll be the one playing the practical jokes.
I've got a sense point logo on my forehead. I thought I might.
But from what we've seen over this last year, perhaps Harry isn't the only jester of the castle.
I think a lot is known about Prince Harry being the joker of the family, but actually William does have a sense of humour. He just keeps it closer under guard and perhaps doesn't wear his heart on his sleeve as much.
It's no surprise then that Kate's humour played a big part in the attraction for William.
We met at university at St Andrews, and we were friends for over a year first. And it just sort of blossomed from then on. We just spent more time with each other and had a good giggle, had lots of fun, and realised we shared the same interests, and just, had a really good time. She's got a really nice sense of humour, which kind of helps me because I've got a very dirty sense of humour. So it was good fun. We had a really good laugh, and then things happened.
She finds him funny, they have some good banter between them, and also she doesn't mind poking fun at him either, which is always a good thing, I think, in a relationship.
It's just really easy with being with each other, and it's really fun, and I'm obviously extremely funny, and she loves that.
It's not forced, and he is evolving in that way. He's developing the sort of humour that people can relate to and smile with him, and that will carry through. That's very important for his popularity as our future king.
There's a certain jollity and relaxation between them when they're together. I mean, they were companions and friends before they became lovers, and I think that that companionship is very apparent.
As well as sharing a sense of humour, their love of sport is something else they have in common.
Kate is probably as sporty as William, so they're always having a bit of banter about who's won this and who's doing that, and we've seen that throughout, but that's great, isn't it? Shows they're a very modern couple who are kind of, you know, vying with each other as well as with the rest of us.
William may be our future king, but in married life they're nothing but equals, and if they're competing, Kate isn't the type to just let him win.
Well, for instance, in the dragon boat race, you know, that I said to Catherine as she was getting on, you know, he thinks he's going to beat you. She said, oh, he wishes. And she's amazingly fit and also very competitive. I mean, William was desperate to win, you know. I mean, he would have felt awful if she'd have beat him, but, I mean, he didn't win by much, but, you know, he did win. And she, I think, was, you know, pleased that he'd won, in a way, you know. Although she really gave it everything. I remember she was determined.
She stepped out, and I think William's team had beaten her, but he put a lovely arm round her shoulder. The photographers went mad for that moment, and why wouldn't they? We don't often see public displays of affection, so that was quite a special moment.
Kate and William have become the most talked about couple in the world, but whilst they're accustomed to being in the limelight, they don't mind taking a step back either. On the 30th of July 2011, Kate and William attended the wedding of his cousin Zara Phillips to England rugby player Mike Tindall in Edinburgh. The nuptials couldn't have been more different to the pomp and ceremony of their special day a few months earlier, and the pair made every effort not to steal the spotlight from the bride and groom. With Kate's outfit so often hogging the headlines, the thoughtful Duchess opted to wear an old favourite, a beautiful but simple beige coat dress. Kate had worn this previously to the wedding of Camilla's daughter, Laura Parker Bowles, in 2006. The Queen, Camilla and Charles and Prince Harry were also in attendance and show that the royals are just as comfortable playing second fiddle when it's someone else's turn in the limelight.
The great thing about William and Kate, particularly Kate actually, is that while they do know their place in public and that they need to engage with the crowds, etc., they're actually very good at stepping back when it's somebody else's big day. We saw that particularly at Zara Phillips's wedding. She was the bride on that day. Kate and William were very careful just to stay in the background.
Obviously, all eyes are going to be on Catherine, but she's taken great pains, and this is a sign of her charm, her natural charm and empathy, to ensure she doesn't upstage the bride. She has dressed smartly, quite traditionally. She certainly hasn't gone out to make people look at her. She's blended in with all the other guests in an absolutely appropriate way.
This modern couple are actually quite media savvy and seem to have learned to manage their exposure and use it to help out the causes close to their hearts.
This place is inspirational. I mean that in the truest sense of the word. It really inspires me.
Going beyond simply what's required of them, they've responded to national and international crises in their own personal way. In August, just months after we saw the entire nation come together to celebrate the royal wedding, cities around the country were ablaze with riots. For days, the shocking scenes were all anyone in Britain was talking about. The royal couple took matters into their own hands by organising a visit to a badly affected community in Birmingham.
It's very important that William and Kate are able to respond to national crises or topical issues such as the Birmingham riots or what's going around or going on in the world today, and in Britain particularly. In the case of the Birmingham riots, they were the ones who said to their aides at Clarence House, I think we should get involved in this in some way.
William and Kate arrived in Birmingham before even the politicians and took the initiative to visit the father of a man murdered during the altercations.
I'm grateful for the Prince and his wife for coming down. It was somebody like myself, I'm a nobody, and for them to come down, it was very, very touching.
It used to be they would wait for an invitation, or they would go through a list of invitations. They were quite kind of reactive. Now it seems they're a little bit more proactive.
This is about the survival of the monarchy and becoming relevant in a world that does not see the monarchy in the same light that it did in 1900.
Again, in October, William and Kate joined forces with the Danish royals to lend their exposure to a worldwide UNICEF appeal. The appeal called for aid in East Africa to a region that suffered the worst drought in 50 years and left millions in poverty.
UNICEF are leading the way, and they're doing a fantastic job. Sadly, there's still a lot more to do, and that's why we're here today to try our best to put UNICEF ahead of the system again and get as many people as possible realising the truly horrendous situation that's going on in East Africa.
Speaking for the first time since the engagement interview, Kate was finding her voice too and keen to be part of the appeal.
Well, it's really just how shocking the situation still is. You know, it's been going for sort of 100 days or so, and it's really still ongoing.
Since lending his support to England's World Cup bid in 2010, William stepped in again in November. This time he was campaigning on behalf of footballers and the nation to convince FIFA to allow players to wear poppies on their shirts. It's clearly something he felt strongly about and showed he's not afraid to lend his weight to an important issue.
That lobbying of FIFA was part of his role as president of the Football Association, and as a future king, he carries that kind of weight. When he becomes king, he will have to stand at the sidelines and let the politicians do it. But for the moment, he can lobby, and he can talk the talk.
As well as reacting to national and global events, working royals have always been keen to undertake work in the charity sector. William's ability to give exposure to a good cause has been long sought after by organisations around the world. But would Kate, a commoner and a newcomer to the royal family, be as in demand?
We understand that Kate was approached by more than 200 organisations in choosing patronages, and actually the ones she's chosen, she did research herself, made private visits to them as well as reading all their material, and she concluded that the Art Room, each the East Anglia Children's Hospices, the National Portrait Gallery and Action on Addiction would be her key patronages for the first year of her royal life, and then volunteering with the Scouts as an added extra in Wales.
So in less than a year of marriage to Prince William, Kate's PR power has skyrocketed. But this is also Kate's day job and something she's put a great deal of thought into.
Let's not forget that charity work and royal duties are really the only career options open to her. So yes, she's going to do charity work. Yes, she's going to be Prince William's consort. I think she's got her work cut out. But it will be important for the public to see her doing charity work, some seriously crunchy, unpaid work as well as standing by her man's side.
By working hard, the royals remain relevant to society and maintain a legacy. But does this support actually have any real value for the organisations they're backing?
For the Duchess of Cambridge to involve herself in any of those charities is the equivalent of winning the lottery. So every one of those charities, from the hospices to the arts schemes, the Scouts. I mean, I forgot the Scouts existed until I saw Kate with a woggle.
Really, it couldn't be better for their publicity. It is money you can't spend on publicity value in terms of putting stories about their charities that might have maybe got a couple of paragraphs inside a newspaper right onto the front page. And we've seen that with Kate's charities. The Scouts, for instance, are absolutely delighted to have Kate as a volunteer. Suddenly, women or young girls everywhere will be wanting to volunteer for the Scouts. And that is the kind of impact they have. So it's immeasurable.
I really hope I can make a difference, you know, even in the smallest way. Yeah, I'm looking forward to helping as much as I can.
So the royal endorsement is priceless, but what about the vulnerable individuals at the heart of these charities?
After they visited the hospital in Montreal, I was able to go in and speak to some of the patients who they'd met, and it was unmistakable that the joy that they had brought to the children and the parents in that hospital. And they'd got amongst them and they'd cuddled them, and they had spoken to the mums who were there and the dads who were there as well. Those children who were really ill had a great day. And I think they had a better day as a result of Kate and William having visited them than perhaps they might have had otherwise. And you know, you can't put a price on that.
From visiting hospitals to meeting presidents, Kate has shown an impressive ability to adapt to any occasion. But Kate's not just anybody, she's the future Queen Consort, which means her role is to support William when he becomes king. And according to this tradition, it's customary for Kate to behave in certain ways in public. So who exactly is her mentor in such important matters? Who can Kate turn to for guidance?
Well, let's make no mistake here. William is Kate's advisor-in-chief on all royal matters. People have said that she doesn't have a lady-in-waiting and she doesn't have a stylist and she doesn't have this and that. Well, no, at the moment she's just got William. And not only is he her husband and lover and all the rest of it, but he's also her first port of call with any royal questions. And why wouldn't he be? He knows exactly how it works.
And as well as taking advice, Kate appears to be a natural. With the palace insistent that Kate be allowed time to ease into her role, Remembrance Sunday was tipped to be her first solo engagement. But Kate was handling her move into royal life with an unexpected confidence. So when Charles was unable to attend a charity event in October, she was an obvious choice to stand in on his behalf.
I think the fact that Prince Charles chose Kate to represent him at the Kind Direct function really shows how much he trusts his daughter-in-law and how much faith he has in her as a working royal. It was quite an endorsement, really. William wasn't there. Kate was going solo for the first time ever, and she handled it, of course, with characteristic aplomb, and Prince Charles would have appreciated that. I think Charles is chuffed to bits that William's married Kate. He likes her maturity, the fact that she's a proper grown-up who knows what's required of her.
It was a wise choice of the prince to ask her to do that, because A, it would get maximum publicity, and B, people would say, what's in Kind Direct? And so, you know, it was very wise to do that. And of course she looked stunning, you know, she wore that fabulous dress and her hair beautifully done, and, you know, which was, having done receptions for that, I wished I'd have done that one that night.
Kate's appearance received high praise in the papers, but none was greater than Charles himself.
The Prince of Wales referred to her as my darling daughter-in-law, and she filled in for him beautifully.
It appeared that Kate's eagerness to please was going down well with all of the royals, and over this year she's established her place within the royal family.
I hope you enjoy tonight, but I hope it's not too loud. The louder the better, Gary. Just there, is it? Louder the better.
Prince Charles and Camilla adore Kate. They think she's the best thing that could have ever happened to William. And that's come about over the time that they've been going out, let alone marriage and beyond.
And Camilla is believed to have taken Kate under her wing, doing all she can to help her feel at home in the family.
I think it was very significant that Camilla took Catherine out shortly before she got married, for kind of a girly lunch to give her some advice on what to expect. Even gave her, from what I gather, a wedding present of a day at a spa or spa treatment. And so, obviously, Catherine would pick up all the little pointers about how to behave and what to do.
If you can't get on with Camilla, there's something wrong with you, because she is the nicest person ever. She's a fun person. She's got a great sense of humour. She's very honest, very transparent. And, of course, you know, she loves William to death, and Harry.
Growing up in an environment where knowing who to trust was often an issue, William and Harry were always going to be particularly close. It was important for William that Kate got on well with his younger brother.
Prince Harry is clearly very fond of his sister-in-law, and in the early days of the preparations of the marriage, he was quoted as saying that Kate is the sister that he always wanted.
And it appears that the feeling's mutual.
Well, what isn't to dislike? I mean, everybody loves Harry. He's the kind of guy who, in the royal circles, will make the mundane amusing.
Last Christmas was Kate's first at Sandringham, but would have been made infinitely more relaxed thanks to the close relationship she's formed with the family. Kate and Harry were even sporting matching footwear for the family's traditional football match on Christmas Eve.
Christmas at Sandringham, which has been a royal tradition really since the early 90s, is a very set-out schedule. They take the mickey a little bit and give each other very silly, tacky presents. Then the next day, of course, you've got the public appearance at church, where all the eyes are on the royal family, and particularly what the ladies are wearing. Kate, of course, included in that for the first time, being on show. And it wasn't a surprise, actually, to see far more crowds out for what was her first ever Sandringham Christmas.
Normally you get a Christmas Day, you probably get 2,000 people turn up to watch the royals go to church. This year, the crowd was doubled. The police didn't know where to put the people. It was that big. She took the flowers from them. She chatted to the children. And in fact, William had to say, come on, Kate, we've got to get back, because the rest of the royal party was almost back in the house, and she was still, you know, people still wanted to keep her.
Okay, this side. A Sandringham Christmas is a pretty tough act to follow, but with Kate's 30th birthday on the 9th of January, William would have to think quickly to pull something special out of the bag. He managed to come up with something quite extraordinary the night before her birthday.
Well, there's got to be some perks to being a princess, and being a princess means that you can go with the Spielbergs to watch the premiere of Warhorse and have Mrs. Spielberg pass the tissues when it gets to the soppy bits. So that's how Catherine enjoyed her birthday. And of course, they had a private celebration as well.
Of course, again on the red carpets, we saw stars falling over themselves to meet Kate and William. Steven Spielberg, the director of the film, talking in greatly animated terms about Kate and how wonderful she was, that she shed a tear throughout the film, and other colour like that.
It's a great honour that they've given of their time and also given of their charity.
The whole purpose of that night was to raise money for the foundation of Prince William and Prince Harry, and donors were falling over themselves to pay thousands of pounds for a ticket to the reception afterwards, just to be able to rub shoulders with the couple.
The foundation provides support to people in the armed forces, and also sharing the red carpet with film stars with 600 serving and ex-military personnel. Once again, the couple had displayed the all-encompassing hospitality they were fast becoming known for.
It's wonderful that it was their idea to bring the veterans here so they could share in this evening.
But was it all work and no play for her birthday, or did William celebrate Kate's birthday in private too?
Well, our understanding is what they did do privately for her birthday was have an occasion for close friends and family that was a very low-key affair. None of the karaoke or 80s-themed party that was rumoured in the press, and actually just a very low-key dinner.
William's birthday present to Kate, however, was a little more thoughtful. He bought her a black Cocker Spaniel puppy. In February, William left for the Falklands in a routine deployment with the RAF. While he would be flying helicopters, Kate would be flying solo at public engagements, wooing the crowds and raising the profile of her charities. Although she had months to prepare for William's absence, she was naturally upset at being separated from him so soon. However, as the wife of a serviceman, Kate would understand that military duties sometimes come before marital ones, but William's role is clearly very important to him too.
Prince William is a search and rescue pilot. It's not just important for everyone to see him doing his job and for his wife to see him doing his job and to be proud of him, but it's much more important for Prince William, who is, don't forget, inherited his title and his future destiny. It's so much more important for him to feel he's doing a worthwhile job.
Even though politicians would say it was just a routine deployment, it came 30 years of the anniversary of the Falklands conflict, where, let's not forget, the Queen's son, Prince Andrew, was a helicopter pilot. He was a decoy for Exocet missiles, quite a very dangerous job. And William going out there was really making a point to the Argentines that the Falklands will remain British, and there is actually no negotiation.
William is vehemently proud of the armed forces and has been insistent that he should be allowed to serve on the front line.
Prince Harry's recently served in Afghanistan, and unfortunately William can't do that because William is too important. You know, William is the heir to the heir, and for that role he can't go. He wants to go. I know he wants to go. I know he's desperate to go and get involved. And I've heard he's even banged his fist on the table saying, I'm definitely going to do it.
William would be an obvious target for enemies in a war zone, placing other servicemen as well as himself at risk.
It would be horrendous if anything happened to him. The damage to the country, to the fabric of the country, to the morale of the country would be so damaging. It just couldn't happen.
Britain's a military nation. We've been at war for, what, nearly 10 years now in Afghanistan and Iraq. And for William and Harry to be part of the military, to represent Britain, to represent the forces, to support military charities, has been very significant. And let's not forget that every future king has been part of the military at one time or another during their career.
All of the royals have had an active role in the military. Before she was queen, Elizabeth was once a military wife when Prince Philip served during the early years of their marriage. There is, of course, a significant generational difference between her marriage and that of William and Kate's. So what advice could she have to offer on a far more modern relationship?
And the Queen's had a very long and seemingly incredibly happy marriage to Philip. She married for love, and I think she would have wanted to instill that in William.
Kate and William's first year has seen them establish building blocks for a long and happy future. Whilst they clearly have been keen to learn from the mistakes made in other royal marriages, it appears that they're also keen to be guided by the successful unions too. For that, William need to look no further than his grandparents, the Queen and Prince Philip.
You have to remember the Queen values marriage very, very highly. Her own marriage to Prince Philip has stood the test of time and has been absolutely crucial to the successful way in which she's reigned.
He is someone who doesn't take easily to compliments, but he has quite simply been my strength and stay all these years. And I and his whole family, and this and many other countries, owe him a debt greater than he would ever claim, or we shall ever know.
I suspect that if you had to sort of take a role model, if William and Kate had to take a role model of how to do it and how to do it for the future, should look no further than his grandmother.
Royal Highnesses.
It appears William is taking more than a leaf out of his grandparents' book. When the Queen was a newlywed, she accompanied Philip on his military placements overseas.
There's great parallels between the marriage of Prince Philip and Princess Elizabeth and William and Catherine. Philip and Elizabeth went off to Malta, which they saw as the happiest time of their marriage, or certainly their early marriage, because they were away from the public spotlight, away from public engagements, and they were allowed to live together as man and wife.
And it gives me huge pleasure to be introducing to this relationship, here and now, someone who is not only about to join the family, but is also about to become an Anglo-Saxonian.
In the mould of his grandparents' marriage, William and Kate have taken the opportunity to live a relatively normal life in Anglesey to allow their marriage to flourish.
It's quite amazing for them to have gone from the royal wedding to a farmhouse on one of the remotest coasts of Wales, really out of the public gaze completely. That couldn't suit them better, because actually, like the Queen and Philip, that gives them some time just to be a couple, not a royal couple, just newlyweds.
He's only got this short time. It's just till he finishes his career in the RAF, which is next year. He's got this small part of their life when they can just live as a normal couple.
So, whilst William has engaged with the public once more, he's made it clear from the outset that he intends to keep his public royal duties separate from his private life. Is it possible to strike a balance?
I think that Prince William especially has tried to send out a very clear signal to the public that he's not going to be forever on show, that he's going to dip in and out of his royal duties.
We can't let this lovely girl who's married into our royal family and taking on a terribly difficult job, always in the public eye, always. I mean, the way she's written about the length of her hair, the colour of her makeup and the dresses, and still coming out of it smiling and wanting to do the next engagement. We've got to give them their private time. Unless we do that, then we could end up with the same tragedies we had with the other princess.
Clearly, this distinction between their public and private lives is something the press is learning to respect, and in return they're given plenty of opportunity to get close to the royals. The Queen has recently hosted a reception for the media at the palace, something that doesn't happen often.
The trade-off is, of course, you know, that they give you great access when they're on duty, but when they're off duty, he wants to be off duty. He wants that private.
As they celebrate their first anniversary, there's no denying that this has been a fabulous year for Kate and William and the image of the royal family. Whatever are they going to do next? With William's profile at an all-time high, there's been much speculation about his future role.
I think people have a lot of faith in the idea of Prince William as king. In fact, some have said more faith than perhaps his father, Prince Charles. That said, I'm not sure if William is ready yet for that full-time royal commitment. He's clinging to his military career for his dear life, has expressed an interest in being posted to another RAF base next year. And I don't think he's ready to stop all of his own ambitions in the military. And I don't think that just because he's got married, it signalled suddenly a change in him. Yes, we have confidence in him, but I think he's still got some way to go before he commits himself fully to royal life.
After a year adjusting to royal life, Kate has been eager to get stuck into her new role as patron for her selected charities.
It strikes me already, what I've seen of her, I've seen her operating, that she's a very caring, compassionate girl, and it'd be nice when she gets her teeth stuck into one of these charities and gets involved with them and see the help that she can give them and the support she can give them and the profile, high profile that she will bring to it. So, you know, it's kind of exciting times ahead.
Kate's first appearance for one of her chosen charities was on the 8th of February at the National Portrait Gallery. On Valentine's Day, she went to Liverpool on behalf of Action on Addiction. The Duchess sampled a smoothie at an alcohol-free bar and was presented with Valentine's flowers by an 8-year-old boy. She visited all of her charities in the following weeks and is expected to keep up this momentum for the rest of the year. And if 2011 was a big year for the royals, 2012 promises to be even bigger. With the Olympics and the Queen's Diamond Jubilee celebrations, Kate and William will be on hand to bring the youth and glamour we've seen this year to more official occasions.
The second year of William and Catherine's married life is going to be very busy. I mean, they're going to Malaysia, they're going to Solomon Islands, they're going to Tuvalu, all representing the Queen for the Diamond Jubilee. And of course, William, Harry and Catherine are going to be ambassadors at the Olympics. So they're going to be very high profile in 2012, 2013. When she's going to have time to get pregnant, I don't know.
It won't be long before William and Kate move into Kensington Palace. The move back to London, to William's childhood home, will make them more available for royal duties. News of a royal pregnancy has been widely speculated upon. So what have they said about it?
I think we'll take it one step at a time. We'll sort of get over the marriage thing first and then maybe look at the kids. But obviously, you know, we want a family, so, you know, we'll have to start thinking about that.
In terms of the future, I think, you know, we are all hoping for the patter of tiny royal feet, and probably in particular for a pair of royal princess feet to come pattering down the corridors of Kensington Palace.
If and when William and Kate do decide to have a baby, they have the potential to make history. With the recent changes to the succession rules, part of the Queen's legacy will be to ensure that if the couple's firstborn happens to be a girl, she will be heir to the throne, heralding a new era for the monarchy.
What the Queen's done that is going to be very important for generations to come in terms of the British monarchy is to allow a firstborn daughter to accede to the throne. I find that unexpectedly moving, because this country's most successful monarchs have all been women. Queen Elizabeth, Queen Victoria, and Queen Elizabeth II.
It's been a remarkable year for our royal newlyweds, William and Kate, as they've adapted to married life in the spotlight. From their fairy tale wedding in spring to the royal tour of North America in the summer, embracing duties at home in the autumn and family life at Christmas, then following their solo pursuits in the new year. They've breathed a new lease of life into the monarchy, making it relevant and bringing hope for the future. And in return, the public all over the world have taken the couple into their hearts.
We need to believe in love. We need to have something which makes us proud of the United Kingdom.
They look like they're in love, they look happy together, and that makes people smile.
We got talking about, you know, why it took him so long and everything, and he said, you know, well, I want this marriage to last forever.
We're hugely excited, and it's, you know, we're looking forward to spending the rest of the times, you know, the rest of our lives together, and seeing what the future holds.
Happy anniversary, William and Kate.
At the Abbey, the Queen seemed animated as she chatted with Carol Middleton and the Duchess of Cornwall. The livery worn by the footmen and coachmen are, wherever possible, antique and original. The newlyweds were given a captain's escort, commanded by William's close friend, Major Nicholas Van Kutsen, 12 troopers of the Life Guards, and 12 of the Blues and Royals. What an experience for the newest member of the royal family. More than 150 horses were on duty. 1,000 service men and women lined the route. 5,000 police officers managed the crowds, and despite fears of disruption or disorder, the security operation was later universally praised. And these were the scenes that everyone had waited patiently to see. The pure pageantry of a royal wedding. The second in line to the throne, en route to the palace, where, with his new wife, he will one day reign as king. For the coachman, a huge responsibility.